Welcome to World Travel Made Easy with Itinerary Boss, the podcast where we dive deep into insider tips, travel hacks, and the best ways to explore the world smarter. I'm your host, Ross. Whether you're a seasoned traveler or just starting your next getaway, you're in the right place. Before we dive into today's episode, I've got something special for you. Head over to itineraryboss.com to grab your free resource to get you started traveling smarter and quicker. And it's all yours to help you make your next trip unforgettable. Don't also forget to follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcast on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube so you never miss an episode. We've got new travel tips, interviews, and destination inspiration coming your way every Wednesday. And if you enjoy the show, don't forget to share it with a friend and give us a rating and review to help more people travel. Also, make sure to subscribe to the Itinerary Insider at itineraryboss.com, where you'll get all the latest episode releases, blog posts, as well as exclusive credit card sign-up bonuses, my travel must-haves, and travel hacks delivered straight to your inbox. Let's get you traveling smarter. And now, on to the show. What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of World Travel Made Easy with Itinerary Boss. I'm excited to walk you through how to plan a northern Arizona trip, as well as how to pull off a surprise proposal in Sedona, Arizona. The reason I wanted to walk you through this is we recently got a chance to head out to Scottsdale and Phoenix for a wedding on New Year's Eve, which was amazing. Shout out to my guy, Brantley Kushner and Daniela Kushner. And we decided, hey, for this is actually the second New Year's Eve wedding that we've done. So we've decided, if we're flying out to Phoenix for a wedding, if we're flying out to LA for a wedding, let's extend the trip and go, all over Arizona or all over California. So for this, we got to spend some time in Scottsdale for 4 days. And then from there, we decided, hey, it's the beginning of the year. It's always slow for work. Let's go see the northern part. So what we did is we rented a car through Turo, which was great. So if you aren't familiar with Turo, think of like the Airbnbs for cars where hosts actually will use their own cars. So what I like about this is it's on an app. You also they'll deliver it to you sometimes. So if you're going to the airport, sometimes a rental car, um, getting a rental car can be a pain and you have to take a shuttle. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. So it just depends on what you like. But I really like Turo because you can get nicer cars and for way less expensive. Like, for example, we got a Range Rover when we went out to California for cheaper than a Jeep would have been. For this trip, we got a 4x4 Jeep. So that was, we wanted to make sure we had that four-wheel drive for the winter in Arizona. But I suggest using Turo. I love it. And check that out. So we were able to have a host deliver the Jeep to us the day after, New Year's Eve when we were getting ready to go on our drive up to northern Arizona. And how we mapped this out is we did some landmarks we wanted to hit when you are mapping this out, depending on how many days you have. Obviously, the Grand Canyon is a must. So it's about 3.5 hours north of Phoenix and Scottsdale. So going straight up, I suggest we stayed there for, it just depends on how much time you have, but we were there in the winter, so it was pretty cold. But I suggest having a day or two there, depending on your itinerary, maybe more, just depending on if you're doing some hiking or whatnot. But we got there. We stayed at the Maswik Lodge. So that was right there in the canyon. So you actually could walk to the Grand Canyon, which was awesome. We were able to check in. We were able to walk over, watch the sunset, which is a must do. And then from there, just had a low key meal. But I suggest staying in the canyon because something to keep in mind, if you stay outside, you then have to drive in the morning. And depending on when you're going, have to go through, you have to pay the state fee, so the national park fee. So you have to drive through. If there's a long backup line, you're going to have to wait in that. So we personally just liked it because we were staying one night. We checked in, walked and saw the sunset, had dinner, came home. We were tired. I mean, from 3, 4 nights in Scottsdale for weddings, partying, enjoying ourselves. That's we definitely wanted just to have a chill night. And we got up then the next day early, and sunrise is something you want to see at the Grand Canyon. Like that way, it was just absolutely breathtaking. But we woke up, we could have walked to a spot. What I did is I did some research prior just to know, like, okay, what are the best sunset spots, or sorry, sunrise spots. We actually did sunsets too, and we were able to walk to that, so that was great. But sunrise spots and a couple places are Mather Point, so that's a top spot. From a lot of places, you probably have to drive there. Most of these places you actually have to drive, but for Mather Point, you'll want to get there 30 to 45 minutes prior because it does get crowded. Depending on when you're going to, like we were in the winter, so it was more low season. But that Yavapai Point and Yaqui Point were three places from sunset, sunrise, but really mainly sunrise. So get there early, get your pictures, enjoy it. It's cool. Get a cup of coffee. If you're going in the winter, make sure you bring a jacket, gloves. You think Arizona, you think warm, make sure you bring gloves, beanie, jacket, dress up like, because you're in the northern part, so it's going to be cold, and this is going up into the northern part of Arizona. So from there, we did breakfast, and then we were kind of time crunched, so we were really just seeing the spots and doing the tourist stuff for Grand Canyon, and then for Antelope Canyon and Horseshoe Bend. So we decided on Horseshoe Bend and Antelope Canyon because it's about 2.5 hour drive up from the Grand Canyon, and both of those are right near each other. They're a 15-minute drive from each other. So what we did is we went to Antelope Canyon first, had the Upper Antelope Canyon tour, which I'll link to the show notes, those tickets from Get Your Guide, and then did that. That was very cool. I have some pictures out that I have on my socials you can check out. If you've ever seen the Microsoft Classic background, you've definitely seen those. So definitely a must do. If for me, like I get a little claustrophobic, so when you're down there in the canyon for 45 minutes walking through, I'm like, all right, when is this going to end? Because it's cool, but now I'm like, okay, what I started kind of spiraling, like, oh, what happens if this happens, or what's my escape plan? So just thinking of things you like to do. If you're like that, maybe Antelope Canyon isn't the best for you, but it's definitely, I personally liked it. We liked it a lot. It was a very cool experience. Not super expensive for the tour. I think the tour was like 50, $60. So check that out. Then from there, we went to Horseshoe Bend. So that was cool. I mean, you just paid a parking fee. It was about a half-mile walk down, and then you had a ton of areas that you could just check it out, walk around, take pictures. Um, Credit and kudos to the influencers, creators, people who are sitting on the ledge taking the wild, like behind the back pictures. I like got close and I was like, no, I'm good. There's no way I'm doing all that. I'm not knowing my luck. I'll slip, start rolling down, and then we aren't here. So definitely wasn't going to do all that. But we got close enough. We got some really good pictures. I mean, amazing views, things you see on screenshots, they say to go to it. So definitely go to it. And they're right there next to each other, up in Page, Arizona. During the summer, that would be a great place to go because you can go right there to the Lake Powell. And I just see on, social media, just going through, you know, the bend and going through just with all of the rocks and the scenery there. Like that's something I want to do, but you ain't doing that during the winter. So if it's somewhere you want to go during the summer, keep that in mind. You can stay in Page, you can do Lake Powell as well. So then from there, we decided to go back to Sedona. There's a couple other landmarks. Route 66. You've seen cars. Life is a Highway. Shout out Rascal Flats. Then you could go up there, but that was more of a drive, and that was like 2 hours, and then it would have been another 5 hours down to Sedona. So logistically, it just didn't make sense for us. And we really wanted to spend a lot of time in Sedona. What we did is we we worked the last 2 days, and Sedona, has great Wi-Fi. We got our tourist stuff, knocked out those 2 days earlier when a lot of people are off. And then that Thursday, Friday, we worked a little bit. So we drove back to Sedona from Antelope Canyon and Horseshoe Bend. Sedona's 2.5, 3 hour drive. So the nice thing is we were able to lock in an Airbnb in West Sedona, and I'll link that in the show notes. Loved it. It was perfect. It was sweet, and it was an Airbnb loft that had king bed, plenty of space, plenty of place to work, right next to a Starbucks, walking. Also, just right near everything you needed to go to, or right in the middle of if you wanted to go do the scenic drive, 10 minutes away. If you wanted to go into downtown Sedona, less than 10 minutes away. So love that. I'll link that into the show notes. But yeah, we arrived that Wednesday night, and we went straight to Lotte Cafe. Absolutely go make reservations well in advance. I had read online, read it, had friends tell us this is a must go to. So we made those reservations 6 to 8 weeks out. So if you're planning a trip, make sure you do that because that place fills up and it's hard to get some of those reservations. Sorry, I need to get some coffee this morning. From there, we then the next day woke up, did a little bit of work. We did breakfast at Sedona Crepes. Highly suggest that. Then we did the drive the Red Rock Scenic Highway, and that's cool because you literally just drive through and you see all of the amazing red rocks. So you have the Chapel of Holy Rock. You also have Bell Rock, which we stopped and did that hike. And then, we also did Slick Rock. So that was pretty cool. And then from there, we ended up just hanging out, going downtown, and enjoying some of the food. And then from there, we actually for lunch, sorry, let's take a step back. Did yeah, did lunch there, and then we came back after doing some of those hikes, and then that was actually the day of the proposal. So let me take a step back because I think it deserves a kind of background story of everything that happened. So I had I had hired someone who I found prior and saw his work, very well rated, gone back and forth, figured out, okay, where are some of the best places to do. And he had his name is Zach Rowe. So he had a whole menu of places, and he said, okay, here's like the top five, right? This is if you like sunsets here, if you want like a secret spot, you can go here. If you want to do this type of background, you can go here. And after he sent me those, I looked, and just from where we were at, what the background I like, I said, okay, cool. Let's do Secret Slick Rock. Hopefully it's not slick, but decided to do that. And what's funny is, and this is why I said at the beginning of the episode, make sure you rent a four-wheel drive car in the winter because you think of Arizona. I knew this from going in the past during the winter with a couple friends to Grand Canyon, but not everyone does. So make sure you rent a four-wheel drive because when we were coming back Wednesday night to Sedona, forgot to mention this, we ran through a huge snowstorm in Flagstaff. So Flagstaff gets a ton of snow. There's a stat, I think it gets the most snow in North America, which you wouldn't think of. But coming back through, we hit a snowstorm, and I was in my head, I'm thinking, okay, great, we got to get to Sedona so I can propose tomorrow. And like just that kind of threw me off. Luckily, we were able to get there, but it was sketchy driving. But again, that four-wheel drive car is going to be helpful. So get there, we have our Thursday morning, we have brunch, we do some of the hikes, we have kind of a low key day. And then from there, we said, I had to tell Audrey, hey, like, and this goes back to how do you plan that surprise, right? So leading into the trip, she's asking me, what do I wear like these days? And usually I'm like, oh, this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. This is what we're doing here. Share the itinerary. I had to keep it like, for a proposal, I had to keep it very, very broad and not go into detail. So I was like, oh, yeah, we'll do a hike. And, Thursday we'll get brunch. We'll do a little hike. We'll come back. We'll do a little bit of work. And then we'll do this like really nice, this cool hike but also like when we're doing a nice dinner. So she's like, oh, well, because I had lined up a really nice dinner to go to at Cress Oak on the Creek, which was like a place that a lot of people will go to after engagements, all that. And told her, wear something that is nice, but right, like you're going on a hike. And I think that kind of threw her off. But so we it snowed, so that then threw a wrench. It snowed on our way down there. So I had this all these hikes around Secret Slick Rock like mapped out. So then when we get to it being around that time, my mind's racing of like, oh great, we're gonna go and to these hikes and then try to figure out what to do. So I'm thinking, okay, please be not snow on the ground, right? Please, everything that I mapped out in the GPS was good. But then we tried to find Secret Slick Rock. It wasn't popping up in the GPS. We didn't have a ton of service. So when we did, we got ready. The proposal was scheduled for 4:30 for sunset. We started to do this drive to go do some hikes, very, very casual hikes, just good scenes. And we pull up to this one place we're supposed to hike, and there's snow everywhere on the ground. And I'm like, oh, great. What do I do? I have to stall here, and I don't have service. So I was like, oh, I got to use the bathroom. We got to go back to the place. Luckily, it was like 10 minutes home. Went back, didn't have to use the bathroom, by the way, just stalled. Went back, hung out in the house for, she hung out in the car. I hung out in the house for like 15 minutes, came back out and was texting with Zach, back and forth, like, hey, we're going to come here. This is where we'll park. He said, hey, this is what I'll be set up at. Here's a picture of what I'm wearing. I let him know what I was wearing. And then from there, drove to the place about 15 minutes. And then when we parked, I get a phone call from my mom, or I get a text from my mom saying, hey, Morty's been sick for the past 2 days. We didn't want to bother you because we knew you were proposing. So your brother's going to take him to the ER. And I'm thinking, oh no, that's going to cost like an arm and a leg because he hasn't had a dog. They're going to be like, hey, he needs an x-ray, an ultrasound. What else? What else you want to do a la carte? Like vets always will try. So if you've seen Entourage, think of the scene where they're in Joshua Tree where Ari has no service and they might have taken some magic mushrooms. And then you don't have any service. So my mom texts me and is like, hey, by the way, and I'll post this on my story in a post so you get kind of the background of it. But she says, hey, he's been sick. We didn't want to bother you. Your brother's on the way to the ER. Can you talk? Or he's going to the ER in 30 minutes. Can you talk on the phone? And I text her back like, no, don't take him. And then she calls me, and then it's connected to Apple CarPlay within the Jeep, and Audrey's in the car, and we're parked, getting ready to go down. Mind you, this is like proposing. I'm proposing in like 10 minutes. So get talk to her. Service is going in and out, so I'm trying to hear what's going on, and then she's saying like, "Oh, well, what do you want us to do?" And I'm like, "Don't take him." And the service is going in and out, which is so. Finally, I was able to text her. It went through, and Audrey's like, "Well, what about Morty? Like, let's go drive and get service." I'm like, "Morty's good. Let's just go on this hike. Let's go on this hike." So luckily, Zach had texted me and let Zach, the photographer, had texted me, let me know, like, hey, it's just me and this one guy. And tip for guys who are proposing, when you go with Zach, he did a great job. But when you are doing it and you are trying to surprise, like, remember, you got to blend these guys in so they fit the persona. So Zach had the long, shaggy hair, he had the long beard. He looked like my guy who'd be out there just ripping shots of rocks, not ripping shots, ripping pictures of just rock, sunset, everything. And so fit fit the mold, and he did phenomenal job, blended in well, but he let me know, hey, it's only me, it's a guy I know, we're down here, we got it set up. So we walked down. Luckily, it was an easy, like 5 minute walk. I had the ring I had a shout out built, had a built bomber on and had it here, but trying to strategically figure out how to have it there. Like when I was driving, I had it on the side that she couldn't, or the inside. So I was driving like this so she couldn't see. Um, but then walking down, got there, just said, "Hey, what's up, man? Like, great view," and started walking around. And then had him set up where then was able to walk over in front of the secret slip rock, gave myself enough room and got down on one knee and the rest is history. But planning a surprise proposal, make sure you have, it's I will say that had no nerves after the Morty story. He was all fine. He was getting fed a ton of treats, and he definitely had social anxiety and definitely was a little bit attached because that was one of our first trips away. But it makes for a great story. We got through it. We went out to Oak Cress on the Creek, Cress on Oak, Cress Oak on the Creek. And then from there, we went out to the Cowboy Club, Grill and Spirits downtown, sat down. Audrey had a ring on, met some people from Steamboat. They bought us some drinks. But that's the thing is when you travel, met these people, they'd sold the most expensive condo in Breckenridge history, square footage wise. They were building this compound in Steamboat. Like they bought us drinks, started having conversations. They were real estate investors and just had a great time. And then, we waited to tell a bunch of people. That next morning, we woke up. We did the Sunrise Airport Mesa hike, which was awesome. Get there early because parking can definitely be scarce. Then we actually did more hiking that day. We did the Cathedral and Bell Rock hike. Then we did Creekside American Bistro for dinner, and then we did Mariposa Latin Grill, where you want to make sure you make those reservations 4 to 6 weeks out. And this is a must go. If you don't have reservations from a dinner standpoint, just if you're getting drinks, go here regardless. This is amazing sunset. There's a big outdoor area. You've probably seen it on most social platforms, but Mariposa Latin Grill was amazing. The food, the sunsets, the vibe. So that was our trip. A couple other things. I've been there before, so the pink buggy Jeep tour is a great thing. I haven't done it, but I've had plenty of friends do it, and I will share the tour in the show notes. But if you want to do a little bit of off-roading, go see a lot of places. That's a good place. We did the Devil's Bridge hike a couple years back, and that's cool. It's a tougher hike, and when you get out there, it's definitely scary when you get up there. I was definitely nervous. I thought I was going to pass out, which wouldn't be good because you're on the bridge. So if you like that, great. If you're a little bit scared of heights and you don't want to do a harder hike, maybe not for you. And then just walking around the town shopping, we really liked that. And other than that, I think just a couple lessons learned are things that I knew from going, but if you're a first timer going to Arizona during the winter in Sedona, pack warm. It gets cold in northern Arizona. Get a four-wheel drive car, right? You could get stuck in a snowstorm. And even if not, like it's better to be safe than sorry. Book those accommodations well in advance. I'll drop where we stayed in all those places in the Grand Canyon, as well as Sedona, and then also when we stayed in Scottsdale. If you're going on a bigger group trip, I'll drop that in the show notes. And then make sure you pack warm clothes, hiking shoes, clothes that you don't care about, just so you can get those dirty. And then book those reservations for restaurants well in advance. My suggestion is if you got 3 nights, and you aren't on a very limited budget, I would, if you are, Elote is a must, and then Mariposa was our second favorite, and then Cress on the Creek. And Grand Canyon, I think if just depending on when you're going, what season, there's a bunch of different tours. When we went when I was younger, we did just some of the hiking, but if you want to do longer hiking tours, if you want to do rafting, whitewater rafting in the Colorado River, which I haven't done, but it looks amazing, or a helicopter tour around that's another thing to do. Loved also one other thing, the Sedona Brewery. That was something that we really liked, and I've been to both times. So yeah, it's a great place. I'd go back to Sedona in a heartbeat. The nice thing is too, if you don't want to do the Grand Canyon, if you don't want to do Antelope Canyon, and you just want to go to Sedona, it's a quick hour and a half, 2 hour drive from Phoenix and the airport. And that's on Saturday when we flew home. We drove back that morning, had a flight around lunch, and we were back home. So really like Sedona, really like Grand Canyon, Antelope Canyon. That Northern Arizona trip is great. The surprise proposal is always fun, but if you are doing a surprise proposal in a different destination, a couple things again, just to recap and highlight are: find a photographer, do the research on who has really good reviews, who has the images that you like, and then talk to them, right? I think you can also vet out, how knowledgeable are they? Are they just going to show up, or do they do this full time? And like the guy that I used, Zach Rowe, he's great. He sent me his 5 different spots that he recommends. He had those on his website. He also said, "Hey, I have this new secret spot no one goes to with Google Maps." I'm glad I didn't do that because that would have been more, just more stress trying to deal with all that. So I had enough adversity during that surprise proposal. So couple tips and tricks. Hopefully, you take a lot away. I'll link a couple of those places in the show notes for tours, for accommodations. Yeah, happy traveling. Hope everyone gets to enjoy a trip down there. If you're planning a surprise proposal, if it's in Sedona, if it's somewhere else, best of luck. Hopefully, you don't get thrown a pickle and have to Euro step a Morty situation like I did. But yeah, appreciate everyone tuning in. If you like this episode, again, make sure you give us a follow. That way you don't miss out on any of these different types of episodes, these interviews. If you liked what you heard, please give it a 5-star rating and review. That helps us reach more people and helps us podcast going. And then if there's any of those places you want to stay, book anything, those are affiliate links for me, but it helps this podcast going, and it also will help you get the experience that I already got to experience and really liked. And if you're looking for a project management software, ClickUp is someone that I use daily. Recently became a super user and a power user, top 10% user in the world of ClickUp users. And it's been an absolute game changer for my process, is keeping me on track, and really just, keeping this podcast and everything else going. So make sure you look at all those. Those are affiliate links, as well as there are some credit card links in there if you want to start to leverage points and miles. And we have a lot of good episodes coming up where I walk you through step by step hotels, airlines, rewards, as well as credit cards, my favorites, and then diving deep into some of those banks and then breaking down like how did I do some of these trips with points and miles. And then we'll have some other experts in the points and miles and travel hacking game coming on as guests. So make sure you tune in. Again, give it a follow. That way you don't miss out on any of these episodes. Hope everyone has a good week. We'll talk to you next week. Peace. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to give us a rating and review so we can reach more people who are trying to travel. Also, make sure you give us a follow and hit the subscribe button. That way, you're not missing out on any of the upcoming episodes that come out every Wednesday. If you want to sign up for any of the exclusive credit card sign up bonuses that we mentioned, we'll link those within the show notes. And then that way you can get started on your points and miles travel hacking journey quicker. Tune in to next week's episode. Peace.